Shalom, everyone. Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 tells us that the mark of the beast is in or upon the forehead and in or upon the right hand. Now just keep that in mind while we examine the seal of YaHuWaH. Exodus chapter 13, verse 9. Now this is specifically in regards to Pesach or Passover. And it shall be as a sign to you on your hand and as a reminder between your eyes that the Torah of YaHuWaH is to be in your mouth, for with a strong hand YaHuWaH has brought you out of Mitzrayim, which is Egypt. Also Exodus chapter 13, verse 16. And it shall be as a sign on your hand and as frontlets between your eyes, for by strength of hand YaHuWaH brought us out of Mitzrayim. Okay, so as frontlets between your eyes, I believe that that is the forehead. And isn't it also an interesting correlation that it is Revelation 13:16, which tells us about the mark of the beast. And here it is Exodus chapter 13, verse 16, which is telling us that there is a mark upon your hand and a mark as frontlets between your eyes, specifically in regards to Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, it should be noted that Easter is a counterfeit version of Passover. Easter and Christmas are counterfeit appointed times that have nothing to do with the true faith. There's an excellent documentary discussion that I'd like to include. There'll be a link in the description box. It is called Truth or Tradition by Jim Staley, and it is an excellent overview of Christmas and Easter and how this has nothing to do with the true faith at all. Now, Jim Staley uses the name YaHuWaH, which is a name that I strongly disagree with. I am very staunch on the name of YaHuWaH. However, other than that, it is excellent information and I highly recommend it. The observance of such things as Easter and Christmas is simply the observance of false religion. I mean, any thinking person at some point in their walk with YaHuWaH or their walk with Messiah Yahushua should ask themselves, what does a bunny and Easter eggs have to do with Messiah's crucifixion and resurrection? Well, nothing. Because it really doesn't. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. Now, I'd like to point out that in Deuteronomy chapter 5, the Ten Commandments are reiterated where they are first introduced in Exodus chapter 20. Okay, so Deuteronomy chapter 6, the very next chapter, verses 6 through 8. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 18. And you shall lay up these words of mine in your heart and in your being. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. Now that's 4 places in the Torah, in Exodus and Deuteronomy, where we are told that there is a mark between your eyes or in your forehead and on your hand for the correct observance of His appointed times, and not these counterfeit versions such as Easter and Christmas. But who knows this? Because Protestant Christianity does not teach this in the churches. They do not teach the Torah at all. So I have a feeling that very few people actually know of this very interesting correlation between the mark of the beast in Revelation and where we are told we are specifically marked on our hands and in our foreheads for the keeping of commandments and the keeping of Passover. Let's keep on checking this out. Okay, Ezekiel chapter 20, verses 11 and 12. And I gave them my laws and showed them my right rulings, which, if a man does, he shall live by them. And I also gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between them and me, to know that I am YaHuWaH who sets them apart. Also, Ezekiel 20, verse 20. And set apart my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, to know that I am YaHuWaH your Elohim. Now, when it refers here to Sabbaths, plural, it is referring to the weekly Sabbath, the weekly seventh-day Sabbath, which is Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, and also the high Sabbaths of the appointed times, which would be Pesach or Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the seventh day of unleavened bread, first fruits, Shavuot or Pentecost, Yom Teruah or the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, more commonly known as the Day of Atonement, and Sukkot, which is more commonly known as the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, again, these things are not taught in Protestant Christian churches because Protestant Christian churches are daughters of the harlot church, and the mother harlot church is the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, also, in Revelation chapter 7, it discusses the sealing of the 144,000. Okay, so it goes through how 12,000 are sealed in their foreheads, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, totaling 144,000. Now, Revelation chapter 7, verse 3, one of the messengers cries out to the other four messengers. Okay, and here's where the verse starts. Saying, do not harm the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our Elohim upon their foreheads. Okay. Now, what is that seal upon their foreheads? Revelation chapter 14, verse 1. And I looked and saw a lamb standing on Mount Sion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written upon their foreheads. Now, the importance of the Father's name, I went over in another video. Also, I'm going to leave links as well to two other excellent teachings by Messenger of the Name, and they are Restoring the Creator's Name, which is about the Father's name, and another one entitled What is His Son's Name, regarding Messiah's name, YaHuWaH. Okay. John chapter 14, verse 6. YaHuWaH said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Okay? Now let's talk a little bit about, a couple verses here in Revelation regarding the keeping of commandments and the faith of YaHuWaH, and how this seal that I've just been talking about here in the Torah and in Revelation, how this ties in to being sealed by Him in the end times. Okay, Revelation chapter 12, verse 17 tells us, and the dragon was wroth with the woman, and he went to make war with the remnant of her seed, those guarding the commands of YaHuWaH and possessing the witness of YaHuWaH. So in Deuteronomy, we're told that you are marked by basically meditating on His commandments all the time and being a doer of them. In two places in Deuteronomy. Okay, in Revelation chapter 14, verses 9 through 11, where it discusses those who have received the mark of the beast and the faith that will befall them. And then Revelation chapter 14, verse 12 tells us, here is the endurance of the set-apart ones, those guarding the commandments of YaHuWaH and the belief of YaHuWaH. Now, these verses should be discussed in these churches, but again, they're not, because these very important matters are hidden from the people. Okay? Now, there is another mark that is interesting, and it is in reference to good character. Those who keep themselves pure when in the midst of general wickedness. Like now, for instance. Okay, Ezekiel chapter 8 describes how punishment is coming upon Jerusalem for idolatry and violence. Ezekiel chapter 8 verse 17. And he said to me, have you seen, O son of man? Is it a small matter to the house of Yehudah to do the abominations which they have done here? For they have filled the land with violence, and turned back to provoke me. And see, they are putting the branch to my nose. Okay, then in Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 4. Okay, now, YaHuWaH calls to a man clothed with linen, who had a writer's inkhorn at his side. And he says to this man, okay, and the verse reads, and YaHuWaH said to him, pass on into the midst of the city, into the midst of Jerusalem, and you shall put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and cry over all the abominations that are done within it. Okay, so those that hate evil, those that hate injustice, those that are sighing and crying over these matters, those that are not apathetic, those who want to do something about these things, that is also a mark upon their foreheads. And when judgment does come in Jerusalem at this time, they are passed over. All right? Now, let's talk a little bit about the beast and the beast system. Daniel chapter 7. Daniel is given a dream, and he sees 4 beasts. Daniel chapter 7, verses 3 through 7. And 4 beasts came up from the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I was looking until its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. And it was given a man's heart. And see, another beast, a second, like a bear, and it raised up on one side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said this to it, arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked and saw another beast, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and rule was given to it. After this I looked in the night visions and saw a 4th beast, fearsome and burly, exceedingly strong, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and crushed, trampled down the rest with its feet, and it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Okay, again, that's Daniel chapter 7, verses 3 through 7. Now keep in mind here, the first beast was like a lion. The second beast was like a bear, and the third beast was like a leopard. So Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 and 2. And I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on its horns 10 crowns, and on its heads names of blasphemy. And the beast I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. Now I would propose to you that this beast that is being described here is the 4th beast that was described in Daniel chapter 7, verse 7, also in 3 other places in Daniel chapter 7, okay, because this is a combination of all the beasts that were before it. So it is basically incorporated every other aspect of all the ruling beasts, the ruling kingdoms of the earth before it. And this, at this point, is a world system just like we live under right now. Okay, so for more descriptions of this 4th beast, let's look at a few other verses. Now, this is in the book of 4 Ezra, also known as 2nd Esdras. And this can be found in the Sepher, C-E-P-H-E-R, Sepher.net. You can get one. It contains 66 books of the Standard Canon, plus 22 extra biblical books. Now, this is the same prophet Ezra that is in the Standard Canon, except there are more writings by Ezra, and this is one of them. Okay, so 4 Ezra, chapter 12, verses 11 through 13. This ties in with what was just read in Daniel as well. The eagle whom you saw come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of your brother Daniel. But it was not expounded unto him. Therefore now I declare it unto you. Behold, the days will come, that there shall rise up a kingdom upon earth, and it shall be feared above all the kingdoms that were before it. Okay, so going back to Revelation chapter 13 for just a moment, when it's talking about what I believe is the fourth beast here, it's talking about a kingdom, a world system, because many believe that this beast that is referred to in Revelation chapter 13 is one man, is the so-called Antichrist. But from this, what I get from this is that this is a kingdom, this is a world system, the world system that we live under right now. Okay, now also for Ezra chapter 11, verse 40. And the fourth came and overcame all the beasts that were past, and had power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression. And so long time dwelt he upon the earth with much deceit. So here we see that this fourth beast, this fourth kingdom, is referred to as a he. Okay, so how might someone who is living under this fourth beast, this fourth kingdom, this system, describe it when they are living under it? And I propose to you, there are many quotes describing this New World Order system that we live under right now. But here is one that I consider particularly succinct and hard-hitting and to the point. It's by former Congressman Lawrence Patton McDonald, and he is quoted as, "The drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government, combining supercapitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control. Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I am convinced there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent." Lawrence Patton McDonald. Okay, so from the description of this beast that we've taken a look at, it is described as particularly fearful, different from all the other kingdoms that were before it, okay, and an incorporation of all the other world systems that existed before it, okay. So long time dwelt he upon the earth with much deceit, okay. Now, there are many, I mean, even still, even with all the information that is out there these days, most people are still oblivious to the fact that they live under such a wicked, deceitful, and powerful system. Okay? So, let's take another look here. This is another particularly good description of this system. This is from the book of 2nd Baruch. This is also in the Sefer. Now, Baruch was a scribe of the prophet Jeremiah. Baruch was introduced in the book of Jeremiah in chapter 36. And there, it discusses things that Baruch wrote in the book of Jeremiah. And Baruch's writings can be found in the Sefer. This is 2nd Baruch chapter 39, verses 5 through 7. Actually, I'm going to read 5 and 6. No, I'll just go ahead and read 5 through 7. Okay. "And after these things, a fourth kingdom will arise, whose power will be harsh and evil far beyond those which were before it." Now, I contend to you, this is an exact description of the world system, this new world order that we live under now. "And it will rule many times as the forests on the plain, and it will hold fast for times, and will exalt itself more than the cedars of Lebanon. And by it the truth will be hidden. And all those polluted with iniquity will flee to it, as evil beasts flee and creep into the forest. And it will come to pass, when the time of its consummation that it should fall has approached, then the principate or kingdom of my Mashiach will be revealed, which is like the fountain and the vine, and when it is revealed, it will root out the multitude of its host. Okay, so let's think about this. It describes this system kind of in the same way that Lawrence Patton MacDonald described it, as incredibly evil in intent, generations old in planning. That indicates spiritual warfare, a spiritual component to this, because I propose to you that people are simply too selfish to carry out such a thing. They are too absorbed in their own self-interests. But if this is a spiritually directed conspiracy, just like we are told basically in Ephesians 6:12, this is how it would play out. Over generations, over time, and we are like frogs in boiling water, so to speak. Okay, so its power is harsh and evil, far beyond those which were before it. By it, the truth is hidden. Okay, the truth of everything is hidden. And also, those that are polluted with iniquity will flee to it. Okay, so I think that this ties into this mark of the beast somewhat. And we're going to discuss that a little bit. So, who are those that would be polluted with iniquity who would flee to it, flee to this fourth beast, as evil beasts flee and creep into the forest, which is, that's the way it is described right here in the Word. So I propose to you, just as an example, let's look at doctors. Let's look at those working for the medical industry, for the medical establishment. Now, I mean, in this day and age of information, what adult out there is not aware or has not thought about the matter of the suppression of cures for cancer, for instance? And considering the amount of information that is out there now regarding the dangers of vaccines, and that there really is a connection, a very strong connection between vaccines and autism and Alzheimer's. I mean, who does not know this? I mean, I find it inexcusable that the workers in this industry, the doctors, the nurses, how they can be unaware of this. I mean, I understand that the schooling system, whether it be medical school or the public schooling system, that this is indoctrination and that this is brainwashing. However, our Creator has given us this magnificent tool known as a brain to be able to discern between truth and lies, to be able to contemplate these matters. I mean, any person going into this field, okay, why don't they just simply consider that, this pharmaceutical industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Now, I mean, is it the motive of a heroin dealer, for instance, for everyone to be clean and healthy? No, they need addicts so that they can be in business. Likewise, this pharmaceutical industry, these cartels, they need people to be sick to be able to continue profit, to be able to continue to profit exorbitantly like they do. Why do they not think about these things? I mean, this just to me is just an example of those who are polluted with iniquity, because it is inexcusable ignorance not to be aware of these things. So I propose to you that many are aware of it, but simply go along with it because their careers depend on it. There are few and far between who actually are medical doctors and who boldly speak out about this. And the few that come to my mind right away are Dr. Rima Lepo, Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, who was recently, there's an interview with her on the Health Ranger, Mike Adams, about her recent death threats and so forth. But she is standing strong. She has faith. She has faith in whom she refers to as God, but still she has faith, and this is what gives her strength to speak out, speak the truth. Also, Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who is very outspoken about vaccines, and also Dr. Russell Blaylock, a neurosurgeon. Look up these people, and ask yourself, well, how are other doctors not aware of this? Well, pediatricians are given a monetary incentive to vaccinate children. Now, why would they be paid by this industry, by this establishment, by the pharmaceutical companies to vaccinate kids in order to keep them healthy? Because again, if people are healthy, then what happens to the bottom line of the overall medical industry and the pharmaceutical companies. Well, it's going to affect their bottom line. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, as strange as it may seem to people. I mean, this is about evil. This is about keeping people sick, but calling it something that is good. So I propose to you, this is just one example of those who are polluted with iniquity, who flee to this fourth beast, willingly serving it, simply so that they can make a lot of money and have this status in society. It's like, oh, you're a doctor, you work for the medical establishment, you must be really smart, you're a respectable person, and so forth. But many of these doctors do not vaccinate themselves, and they do not vaccinate their own kids. But they want to sell you on the notion that this would be good for you. Okay? Look into this much further. There is a discussion, an hour and 49-minute discussion by Dr. Rima Lebo on this channel about this very matter. Listen to this straight from a very bold and brave doctor's mouth. Okay, and again, this is James 4:4. Friendship with the world is enmity with YaHuWaH. This is a prime example of friendship with the world. Having friendship with the system of mammon simply so that you yourself can profit when it is at the expense and the great expense of others. Because I propose to you that the suppression of cures for cancer, this has been going on for nearly a century now, this is an epic crime against humanity. So those that participate in this simply so they can benefit, that is called being polluted with iniquity. Okay, so the mark of the beast also tells us that there is a number of the beast. And this is the infamous, or the very well-known 666, 666. Now, what does this mean? I'm not entirely sure. However, I think that it is interesting that there's another place in the Word where we are given the number 666, and it is specifically in relation to money. Okay, 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 14. And the weight of gold that came to Solomon, yearly was 666 talents of gold. Okay, now I think that is a correlation, that is a connection that cannot be overlooked. I mean, how could it be? Okay, so let's think about this for a second. Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. No one is able to serve two masters, for either he shall hate the one and love the other, or else he shall cleave to the one and despise the other. You are not able to serve Elohim or YaHuWaH and Mammon. Okay, and this entire system is based on Mammon, is based on money. We're all enslaved to this money system in some way, shape, or form. But those who are truly serving the beast are just attracted to this system of mammon. They are not repulsed by it. They want to profit from it. They want to join it, and they run into it, and they serve it gleefully. They ignore all the evidence regarding things like the suppression of cures, and that this is based on profit, and that disease is manufactured and so forth. I mean, again, it is just incomprehensible to me how these so-called smart people who've been able to get through medical school are unaware of these things. Therefore, I say to you that they are probably most likely either aware of it and simply do not care, okay? Or they are just simply willfully ignorant of these things. And that, I propose to you, I mean, if you are not sealed by YaHuWaH in the ways aforementioned, the keeping of His commandments, the belief and faith in Yahushua, and the keeping of His word, the keeping of the correct appointed times, okay? And those who sigh and cry for the abominations that are taking place in the land, that is the seal. Also, His name written upon their foreheads, the 144,000. His name is a very important matter. There's a teaching on this channel about that. And again, restoring the Creator's name by messenger of the name. Strongly recommend watching that. But who is marked by the beast? Okay? As it says in 2 Baruch, those that are polluted with iniquity and flee to it. I would propose to you that these people are marked by the beast, and it is not necessarily a microchip that is placed in our brains or in the right hand although, this is going on, and I think, this is definitely a major aspect of this beast system. I'm not sure everything that is entailed regarding the microchips. I know that this exists and that this is going on. However, the seal of YaHuWaH, the mark of YaHuWaH, is a spiritual mark. Okay? So I'll propose to you, it's the exact same thing. Those that are willfully and gleefully serving the system of mammon would be marked by the beast in their hand by their works. These are their works. And in their foreheads by what they believe, what they meditate on, what they think about, what they care about, that sort of thing. This is just something to think about here. Now, I'm not entirely sure about this, but I believe that this is something very serious that we should all be meditating on and considering. And I would like to leave you with this. This is Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 3. Seek YaHuWaH, all you meek ones of the earth, who have done his right ruling. Seek righteousness, seek meekness, if so be that you are hidden in the day of wrath of YaHuWaH. It is that time. It is that time, because these days are dark. It is that time where I encourage you to begin to seek him. If you have not already done so, if you are not doing so now, begin to seek him with all your heart, mind, and soul, because he is the only refuge, from this evil and wicked system that we live under. Now, I could go on and on about those polluted with iniquity and this sort of thing. I was just giving one example with the medical establishment. But I mean, these are very dark days that we are living. Perilous times, as it is described. I think it is in, it's either in Timothy or Peter. But, to any thinking person who is awake these days, these are very perilous times. We are being attacked from all sides with nanotechnology, fluoride in the water, vaccinations, endless, relentless, mindless, diabolical propaganda by way of the media and brainwashing through the so-called education system, which is really just government mind control, indoctrination facilities across the land, all the way from kindergarten all the way up through university. And it should also be noted here that government, the word government, gouverner, means control, and mentis means mind. Okay, so government literally means mind control. And the United States is but one branch or one aspect of this fourth beast system, which stems from Rome. So I encourage you, seek these matters deeper and seek YaHuWaH now. Thank you for listening.